Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Thursday morning, July 14th. We're right at the middle part of the month of July, and I thought I'd spend this video discussion on the tropical scene, both in the Atlantic Basin as well as the Pacific Ocean. The Atlantic Basin includes the Atlantic Ocean, Gulf of Mexico, and the Caribbean Sea, and right now there is absolutely no activity. Doesn't look like there'll be any activity for the next couple of days. This is certainly somewhat unusual for the middle part of the month of July, and we'll talk about why we believe things will start to ramp up over the second half of the month of July going into the early part of August. We'll take a look at the Madden-Julian Oscillation in a moment or two, which is indicating there should be an increase in activity later on in the month. Let's now jump to the eastern part of the Pacific Ocean. There is in fact a hurricane out in the eastern Pacific, Hurricane Darby. It will continue to move west over the next couple of days and will certainly weaken before it has any chance to affect the Hawaiian Islands. It will tend to weaken all the way into tropical depression status long before it has a chance to have an impact on the Hawaiian Islands. But really, that's the main bit of activity in the eastern part of the Pacific Ocean. There's another wave that we'll be watching over the next couple of days. Well, if you think it has been below normal in the Atlantic Basin so far this tropical season, you are correct, at least in terms of the measurement known as the accumulated cyclone energy, the ACE index. This is the best way to measure overall tropical activity. You can look at the number of storms, but it's not only the frequency of storms, but it's the magnitude of each storm, and most importantly, the duration of each of these storms, and that is what the ACE factors in, the accumulated cyclone energy. There are many storms that are named nowadays that only last a day or two, probably wouldn't even have been named 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. So the ACE, again, is probably the best way to measure overall tropical activity. And here we have a breakdown from Colorado State University of the entire northern hemisphere right here. What we see right here in the parentheses is the normal, the average ACE for the northern hemisphere as we get into the middle part of July, and to the left there is the actual observation so far. So we are below normal, the northern hemisphere as a whole. The climatology here, the averages are comparing with the 1991 to 2020 baseline period. Now right here in the North Atlantic, the Atlantic Basin, well below normal. Supposed to have an ACE of around 6.0. It's down to 2.8. The Northeast Pacific, where the Hurricane Darby exists right now, is actually above normal, but the Northwest Pacific is well below normal. And again, overall, the Northern Hemisphere is below normal. The Pacific Ocean, by the way, far outweighs in importance the Atlantic Ocean in terms of overall global activity. Many more storms tend to form out in the much larger Pacific Ocean and have a bigger impact certainly on global ACE than the Atlantic Ocean. But again, right now, going to the middle part of July, the Atlantic Basin is below normal, as is the Northern Hemisphere as a whole. Well, let's take a quick look at the sea surface temperature anomalies. This is from the Canadian Meteorological Center, and again, the big overriding story is La Nina right here, jumps right out at you. The blues representing colder than normal sea surface temperatures. This particular horizontal line right here represents the equator, and in the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean we have La Nina for the third season in a row. That's quite unusual, that back-to-back La Nina episodes right here in the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean. And it tends to favor activity in the Atlantic Basin. Indeed, it's still fairly early, and I do believe activity will start to ramp up later this month and will continue to ramp up as we go through August. Notice in the Atlantic Ocean we do have kind of a track here of normal to above normal temperatures off the west coast of Africa, and perhaps most importantly to residents of the U.S., certainly above normal conditions in the Gulf of Mexico and the southwestern part of the Atlantic Ocean. So this is kind of an area of concern. It increases the chance for what I tend to call homegrown type tropical systems that don't take that long trek across the Atlantic basin, but tend to form closer to the U.S. in the Caribbean Sea, the Gulf of Mexico, Southwest Atlantic. So this is something we'll certainly monitor over the next few weeks, and indeed over the next couple of months as we head right into the heart of the tropical season. The Atlantic Basin tropical season, from a climatological point of view, tends to reach a peak right around the middle part of the month of September. Well, one of the signals that we like to track this time of the year with respect to tropical activity is known as the Madden-Julian Oscillation. And really what it does, it monitors the movement of a tropical disturbance that goes all the way around the tropical region, around the globe on kind of a regular basis. And its particular location at a given time can have an impact on tropical activity in the Atlantic Basin or the Pacific Ocean, certainly including the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean Sea. And this is a forecast map from the European model run for the positioning of the Madden-Julian Oscillation with respect to what we call phases, different phases. These numbers right here represent the phases of the Madden-Julian Oscillation, and it's currently right in this region right here in phase 8, or at least over the last few days, but it's forecasted over the next several days to go all the way through phase 1, 2, and 3. And from an empirical point of view, when the MJO gets into phases 1, 2, and 3, as it's forecasted to do here over the next few weeks, that tends to be a more active period in the Atlantic Basin, both the Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean Sea, and also the Gulf of Mexico for that matter. So again, this particular model run and the positioning of the MJO, the Madden-Julian Oscillation, suggests that we'll have increased activity as we go through the second half of July, going into the month of August. And of course, you tend to have increased activity as you go through late July into August, since sea surface temperatures normally warm up and they tend to reach their peak in September, which is one of the reasons why the peak of the Atlantic Basin season is indeed the middle part of September. So while activity is non-existent right now in the Atlantic Basin, we do expect things will start to get more active later this month, and certainly going into the month of August. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.